I want to tell you something I don't talk about enough. For the first 40 years that I lived with type 1 diabetes, I did exactly what I was told. All right, not exactly, but I tried to follow the American Diabetes Association diet plan, and I counted my carbs the way they said to count them. I managed my insulin the way my doctors told me to manage it. I was a pretty compliant patient. And for a long time, I thought that was all I needed to do, that it would be enough. Well, it wasn't. Somewhere in those 40 years, things started to go in the wrong direction. My energy wasn't what it used to be. My numbers were trending in ways that concerned me. My doctors had warnings. My labs had warnings. My body had warnings. And I started to feel for the first time in my life like I was losing ground to this disease instead of holding my own against it. Well, that scared me. Not in a panic kind of way, in a quiet, serious way. The kind of scared that makes you sit down and think hard about what you're actually doing and whether it is working. If I did something my doctors did not tell me to do, I started studying, started reading the research, not the pamphlets, not the food pyramids, the actual peer-reviewed science. And then I started experimenting on myself, testing what the research said against my own blood sugar, my own CGM, my own body. What I found completely changed everything. And what I built from that research is a system that has given me the best health of my diabetic life. Not in my 20s, when I was young, but now. I'm Stephen Michael Smith. I am the Diabetes Authority. I've had type 1 diabetes for 60 years now. And today I'm going to share the 4 food formulas that I discovered. The one that destroyed my insulin resistance and turned my A1C around after 4 decades of doing it a different way. Yeah, if you have been doing what you've been told and it isn't working, this one is for you.
What insulin resistance actually is and what causes it. Most people think insulin resistance means their body makes bad insulin or not enough of it, but that is not what is happening. Here's the real picture. Insulin is a key. Your muscle cells have locks. When insulin, the key, fits into the lock, the door opens and glucose flows in from your bloodstream to fuel your muscles. Blood sugar drops. Everything works. Insulin resistance happens when the lock gets jammed. Insulin shows up, tries the door, and cannot get in. Glucose stays in the bloodstream. Blood sugar stays high. Your body pumps out more insulin trying to force the door open. Over time, the whole system gets exhausted. So what jams the lock? This is the discovery that changes everything, and it is what most conventional diabetes advice completely misses. Fat. Specifically, fat that is built up inside the muscle cells themselves. Scientists call it intramyocellular lipid, which simply means fat inside the muscle. When dietary fat is high, it accumulates in muscle tissue and physically blocks the insulin signaling pathway. This mechanism is called the Randle Cycle. It was first described by scientist Philip Randle in 1963. When fat is available as fuel, the cell essentially shuts the door to glucose. The higher the fat load in your diet and in your bloodstream, the more severely insulin signaling gets blocked.
This is why a low-fat, whole-food, plant-based diet is so powerful for blood sugar. It is not about cutting calories. It is not about avoiding carbohydrates. It is about clearing the fat out of the muscle cells so that insulin can do its job again. When you reduce dietary fat, especially saturated fat from animal products and processed oils, intramyocellular lipid drops. The lock unjams. Insulin gets back in. Blood sugar response. Studies from Dr. Neal Barnard at the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine showed that a low-fat, plant-based diet reduced A1C and improved insulin sensitivity more effectively than the standard ADA dietary guidelines, without calorie restriction. The standard 88 dietary guidelines, the same ones that told millions of diabetics for decades exactly what to eat. The research says we can do better, and the 4-food formula coming up is what doing better actually looks like.
The 4-food formula that destroys insulin resistance. 4 food groups, every single day. Low fat, high fiber, whole, and unprocessed. Each one attacks insulin resistance from a different angle. Together, they create a nutritional environment where insulin can function the way it was designed to. Food group number 1. Starchy vegetables and whole grains. Potatoes, brown rice, oats, sweet potatoes, corn. These are the primary fuel source in the DDS formula, and they are the foods most diabetics have been told to fear. Here is what the fear gets wrong. Starch does not cause insulin resistance. Fat causes insulin resistance. When you eat starch without the fat, no butter, no oil, no animal protein alongside it, glucose enters the bloodstream at a manageable rate. Insulin responds normally, and the cell opens the door cleanly. Whole starches also contain fiber that slows digestion and blunts the blood sugar curve. And when cooked and cooled, many starches develop resistant starch, a form that behaves more like fiber, feeds good gut bacteria, and further improves insulin sensitivity over time.
Food group number 2, beans and lentils. Beans and lentils are the most underrated blood sugar foods on the planet. They combine complex carbohydrate, plant protein, and extraordinary amounts of fiber in one package, and that combination is exactly what insulin resistance cannot survive. The fiber in beans slows the release of glucose. The protein further blunts the post-meal blood sugar spike, and beans are naturally very low in fat, which means they do nothing to contribute to the intramyocellular lipid buildup that jams insulin signaling. A landmark clinical trial from Dr. David Jenkins at the University of Toronto found that eating a cup of legumes daily for 3 months produced meaningful reductions in A1C. Not supplements, not drugs, beans.
Food group number 3. Fruits. Fruit. Another food that scares diabetics, and again, the fear is misplaced. The sugar in whole fruit is packaged with water, fiber, vitamins, and antioxidants. That packaging changes everything about how the body handles it. Fiber slows absorption. The glycemic load of whole fruit is far lower than processed foods with the same sugar content. A large study published in the British Medical Journal followed hundreds of thousands of people and found that eating whole fruit, especially blueberries, grapes, and apples, was associated with significantly lower diabetes risk. Fruit juice raised risk. The difference is the fiber. The whole food matters. Fruit also provides antioxidants that reduce inflammation, and inflammation is a known driver of insulin resistance. The more whole fruit in your diet, the lower the inflammatory load on your cells.
Food group 4. Non-starchy vegetables. They're the foundation everything else sits on. Leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, peppers, zucchini, carrots. Eat them abundantly and eat them often. Vegetables are dense with micronutrients that directly support insulin function. Magnesium, found in leafy greens and broccoli, is essential for insulin receptor activity. Low magnesium is consistently linked to higher insulin resistance. Chromium, found in broccoli and green beans, enhances the action of insulin at the cellular level. And because non-starchy vegetables are extremely low in fat, you can eat large volumes without any concern for blood sugar impact. They fill your plate, fill your stomach, and protect your cells simultaneously.
How the formula connects to your A1C. Here is how these 4 food groups work together as a system. Starches and beans provide the fiber and slow-release carbohydrate that keep blood sugar stable meal to meal. Fruits provide antioxidants and natural sweetness that reduce inflammation. Vegetables deliver the micronutrients that keep insulin signaling sharp. And because the entire formula is low in fat, the low intramyocellular lipid stays low. The lock stays clear. Insulin gets in, glucose gets used.
blood sugar comes down. A1C follows. Research from Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Dr. Dean Ornish showed that whole food plant-based eating produced changes in metabolic health that no drug has ever matched. For type 1 diabetics, the benefit is equally real. Less insulin resistance means insulin works more efficiently, blood sugar becomes more predictable, and A1C improves consistently over time.
Well, I spent 40 years doing what the American Diabetic Association told me to do. Yeah, 40 years following the plan, trusting the guidelines, believing that if I just managed it well enough, everything would be fine. Well, my body started telling me otherwise, and I had a choice to make. I could keep following the same plan that's producing those results, or I could go out and find out for myself whether there was something the guidelines were missing. I chose to find out. I studied the research. I tested everything on myself. I tracked every number and paid attention to what exactly moved the needle. What I found was not some radical fringe idea. Nope. It was in the peer-reviewed science. It's been known a long time. It was just the kind that the doctor didn't tell me about. The 4-food formula I just walked you through, that is what the research pointed to, and that is what my own body confirmed. One meal at a time over years of careful experimentation. I'm not telling you this because I had it all figured out from the beginning, because I did not. I'm telling you this because I want to help you. I wish somebody had shown me this 20 years earlier. Wow, that would have been a game changer. If your current approach is not giving you the results that you want, if you don't feel like you should, if the numbers aren't where they should be, if the energy's not there, if something just feels like it's going wrong, please do not wait 40 years to look deeper. Start now. Subscribe if you have not. Subscribe if you have not already. Every video on this channel is built on the research I found and tested on myself. Drop a comment below. Tell me how long you've been managing your diabetes and what you've tried. I want to know where you're starting from. I read every single one. That's not managing it. That's dominating it.